Rams Seahawks playoff game number 2. Let's go. So first, weather real quick. It's supposed to be rainy in Seattle after the game, but during the game, I don't know. Who fucking knows? It's the weather, right? But probably not an issue here. Injury wise, obviously, Jared Goff questionable. I'm just gonna operate as if he plays. If he doesn't, I'll talk about it at the end. I think it's pretty obvious what I'm gonna say at that point. But he's questionable as well as David Edwards starting guard. If he doesn't play, I would assume it'll be Joe Noboom, who has been playing tackle. They get Andrew Whitworth back off IR. I think he'll slide in, given how he's played this year, but maybe not. They also might put Brandon Allen, why he's written here, at center and move Austin Blythe out to guard. We'll see. And on the defense, Jaron Reed, Shaquille Griffin, both starting players, questionable. Neither of them are super important in this specific matchup. Obviously, they'd prefer if they play, but there's not a huge difference between Shaquille Griffin and Trey Flowers, and again in this matchup. And Jaron Reed, he's definitely better if he plays than if he doesn't, but he's not a super impactful player. So yeah, let's get into it though. So first we got the Rams offense versus the Seahawks defense, the run game. So this is really important for the Rams. This really dictates a lot of how successful they can be. Basically, so here, right, on the interior, David Edwards or Joe Nobu and Austin Blythe, Austin Corbett. They played better this year than I expected for sure, but they are still far from an elite unit. Now, some things I think like PFF says they have been, but they've played a lot of a lot of easy like interior matchups, and they frankly still haven't been all that good. McVay helps them a ton with the way he schemes things. He doesn't ask them to do really difficult things. And what he does ask them to do, I will admit, they're not awful. Like I don't want to roast them too much. It's just don't expect them to run anybody over because they don't. Unless it's the week one Cowboys who like had the worst defensive interior I've ever seen. So yeah, in this case on this year, I think it's gonna be mostly neutral. Put it for Jaron Reed, Brian Monet, their tackle rotation. None of them are really relevant players getting into the backfield. Now, Ford and Reed can a little bit, but it's not like something you're really going to get concerned about. And again, the Rams' offensive line definitely hasn't been a disaster this year. So then the edges, which is more important for the Rams. So you get Andrew Whitworth back off IR, and Rob Havenstein at the other side. And this, we'll see. I think this is a light advantage for the Rams. I will mention here real quick that the Seahawks don't. So they play a free like a 4-3 if you go into man or whatever, but they don't really. Since most of this year they played actually more of a 5-man line of scrimmage with two. They put KJ Wright up as like an edge defender, KJ Wright outside linebacker, and then move LJ Collier into like a 3-tech like over or just inside the tackle, and then have Carlos Dunlap since they got him from trade, kick out wide, which does, I think, in this game help them that they've gotten used to playing that because it's harder to control the edges when the edges are just widened out like that. And while KJ Wright is as an edge defender lacks a little bit of athleticism at this point in his career, he knows what he's doing, and he's still he can hold the point of attack reasonably. On the other side, Carlos Dunlap is actually pretty similar. Obviously, the way they do it is a lot different, but the effect ends up being pretty similar. And with the Rams tackles, like Robert Havenstein probably is going to have some flashes of real movement in this game, but he's not like incredible. And Andrew Whitworth, like he's 30 whatever, he's almost 40, and he's coming off of IR now. I expect him to be pretty good because he's just a good player, but to expect him to like dominate the edges, I don't really see that happening. So on the second level, Bobby Wagner, the man's a monster. He is built for this game. These teams in division that he plays, the 49ers and Rams, he's built to play against them. He's gonna be really good in this game. Now, he does lack a little bit of speed at this point in his career. Again, he's also almost fucking 40. He feels like himself. But am I super worried about him? No. Jordan Brooks, on the other hand, who's going to be their other middle linebacker, I'm a little bit worried about here. Now, he has the speed and athleticism to keep up, but he has shown pretty consistently that he'll make mistakes and get out of position. If there's a place for the Rams to attack, it's absolutely him on the second level. Am I crazy worried about it? Not necessarily, but that's definitely something I would point out. Now, what helps the Seahawks is that their other like ancillary run defenders, specifically Jamal Adams, and Ugo Amadi, actually, the guy that plays slot corner for them, are both good run defenders. Well, very good in the case of Adams, and like good for a nickel corner as far as Ugo Amadi goes. So they have the tools to shut down the Rams and shut down the Rams like across the field, which is what you need. So their overall run game, like I said, I do think it's going to be there. There's just enough advantages at the line of scrimmage plus McVay that they're going to be fine. But Adams and Wagner, I think, really limit the like long upside, like explosive runs that they kind of depend on, as well as Cam Akers just not doesn't really create them himself. So that hurts them overall because that's kind of what they need. So then you talk about the pass game. So pass rush first. Rams pretty much fine here. As far as the tackles go, at this point, like I'm not worried about the Rams tackles. Carlos Dunlap, like the Seahawks edge defense pass rush has gotten better in recent weeks because they played pretty garbage teams or garbage tackles, and yeah, it's still not really there. These tackles, like Carlos Dunlap, sure, over time, him, Benson Mayoa are both like good enough to generate pressure, against somebody who's just standing in the pocket for 6 seconds. But is there anything quick? No. On the interior, again, Rams are really vulnerable there, but is Jaron Reed really going to have 10 pressures in this game? Absolutely not. So Rams mostly fine on that front. With the receivers, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Josh Reynolds, Van Jefferson, good, really good receiver group. And here they're going to be pretty good, but listen. So Robert Woods is in the tier, pretty close to like Stephon Diggs. He's really similar to like John Brown on the Bills, which is a compliment. I think they're both really, really good players. And so he's going to be able to get open against anybody, which absolutely includes the Seahawks corners. Cooper Kupp, though, Cooper Kupp not a good separator at all. Like he's really similar to Juju Smith-Schuster actually in a lot of ways as being in the slot and now he's better, but they do a lot of similar things, and what they both happen to kill is bad slot corners. Now, because if he lines on the outside for as little as I think of the Seahawks corners, like that'd be a neutral at best for the Rams. So out of the slide, that's what's important. And Ugo Madi, so he really struggles with like blowing coverages at times, which it will be an issue in this game for sure. But actually, on like a down to down like man coverage basis, he's not that bad. And then there are other guys. I mean, Van Jefferson is okay. Josh Reynolds is, whatever. I'm not going to expect them to be shut down. Seahawks aren't good enough for that, but are they like really, really helping in this game? Probably not. The tight ends, though, that's probably the more important part. Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett. So Gerald Everett, really good. Yeah, if you want a free agent tight end, that's the man. That guy's really, really good. But here, listen, the Seahawks not perfect, but they're about as good as it gets as far as covering tight ends because of Bobby Wagner's ability over the middle of the field and Jamal Adams. Now, Jamal Adams can be really vulnerable in coverage to like actual receivers. Like, remember him getting cooked by Julian Edelman when they played the Pats earlier this year. But versus tight ends, especially like Tyler Higbee, he can really, really limit Tyler Higbee. So the Rams, they're dependent on two things. They're dependent on being able to run the ball and being able to like play action, hit easy stuff over the middle because that's what gives Jared Goff success that he can handle consistently. That stuff is lacking as the Seahawks. That's why the Rams struggle a lot. It's why the 49ers struggle a lot. Those offenses depend on that. And when you have two like extremely good middle of the field defenders, that really hurts. Now, Jared Goff specifically is vulnerable to that because he can just miss players sitting in zone coverage like pretty consistently. And even Quandre Diggs, the Seahawks' other safety, gets into that as being he has problems. Like again, like kind of blowing coverages, but like as a reactionary defender down the field, he's good. There's a reason he has a lot of picks and a lot of pass breakups. So the overall offense, I've been scoring 17 to 24 points if Goff plays. Frankly, that might even be a little high. Part of it comes to they're gonna have a lot of chances. Seahawks offense really bad at ball retention, but listen, it's Jared Goff with like a reasonably good offensive line and weapons that do work, right? So they're not going to get shut down. They're not going to score fucking 6 points, but are they good enough to really like move up and down the field constantly? Probably not. And they're really going to be missing explosive plays because of the nature of their offense versus the way the defense plays. So I said them at 17-24. Now, if John Wolford plays, I actually, low key, I think he did some things that were decent. He just showed a willingness to throw the ball down the field, which is one of the first things if a quarterback can even function in the NFL, that's one of the first things to look at. But here, if he were to play, that'd be awful. He would get fucking destroyed by Bobby Wagner just mentally with calls of line of scrimmage consistently. That would get really ugly. So if that was the case, I'd have them at 6-13, and that's more of I think their defense could set them up for some scores in this game. But yeah, we'll see. 17-14 of them though. But then we got Russ. Then the Seahawks offense, the stupid ass Seahawks offense. So, man, this will get interesting. So injuries first. Nothing really relevant on the Seahawks side. Brandon Shell though, just back from Where did I put him? Just back from IR, so or I think it's a COVID list actually. So we'll see if he starts. I'm assuming he's going to. I believe Pete Carroll said he's going to, but never know. So Cedric could be the backup there, and same with Mike Iupati, missed week 17, and they've had Justin Simmons starting for him. I think they're pretty similar players, to be honest. So I don't necessarily care which one plays, but that's the other one. And then on the Rams side, Micah Kiser, starting middle linebacker, questionable. He's missed a little bit here. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I definitely hope for their sake he does, but not positive. And Leonard Floyd, questionable. I'm sure he's going to play for the playoff game. So, first we got the run game. Trash. Don't need to get into it very much. Just like every other Seahawks game, they are terrible running the ball. Their scheme is really, really bad. And without significant advances in the line of scrimmage, they're just going to be garbage at it. And that's even worse than the case here. This is as bad of a matchup as you're going to get, especially for the Seahawks. So you got Dwayne Brown, Mike Iupati, Ethan Pochich, Davian Lewis, Brandon Shaw versus the Rams front seven. So on the line of scrimmage, yeah, really, really bad. Aaron Donald is going to consistently, he's done it every Seahawks game, constantly destroy the guys in front of him. Mike Iupati, Davian Lewis are both notably vulnerable to losing very quick to people with agility. And that's just to like normal good players with agility. And Aaron Donald, of course, just a little bit better than that. So he's going to be a really dominant problem. And frankly, the other guys too. I mean, Morgan Fox and Michael Brockers both, though they went in a little different ways, can both notably penetrate here. And it's not like they're going to push people either. They can't push those guys. They can't push Ashawn Robinson. They can't push Sebastian Joseph Day. The Rams knows is pretty good. Like, they're going to have no traction in the line of scrimmage. On the edges, it gets like a tiny bit better because they go from being at a large disadvantage to like only a slight disadvantage, right? Because Brandon Shell, Dwayne Brown's a good pass protector, not really a notable run blocker. He's okay. He's not a disaster, but he's not anything special. And Brandon Shell's in a similar boat, although he can flash a little bit more because he's stronger. He's still not very good. So you got that versus the Rams edge defenders and Leonard Floyd, Saints and Ibuka, and their depth too, which they have a lot of, all play the run like disciplined and well, right? So they can't run the ball. And then the second level, the Rams are a little bit vulnerable. Troy Reader has been pretty good since he started playing. Number 51, the Rams linebacker. I think he's pretty decent actually, but he's not like a shutdown player, right? And then their other spot, if Micah Kaiser plays, they're better because he's okay. He's a replacement level guy. He's not a disaster. But if Kenny Young plays, I've talked about this in their other games, that guy's just not very good. He's not, so I roast him probably too much, not a little bit unwarranted. He's not like awful, but he struggles to make plays and he struggles to be in the right spot. Now, there's been some like splash moments from, Aaron Donald basically gifted him a pick six a couple weeks ago, but that would be a little bit of an issue if that happens. Not terrified of it, just want to mention that. So their overall run game, yeah, it's really, really garbage. The only chance they have is because Chris Carson is just a physical mismatch against the Rams linebackers, and that can cause chunk plays by itself. And the Rams like safeties and their slot corners aren't particularly good run defenders too. So like there's chances at a couple chunks, but down to down, they're gonna be really bad at it. So the pass game, pass rush wise, again, Aaron Donald absolutely dominant in this game. He's going to consistently beat the interior. And listen, the Rams are set up perfectly to rush Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson, right, you really need a unique circumstance in order to affect him as a pass rushing team, like consistently. And the Rams really achieve that because what they do, right, they have two really disciplined edge rushers who aren't trash, right? It's not like they're going to get washed out at every play between Leonard Floyd and Samson Ebukam or whoever else they play over there. They're going to have disciplined edge rushers who can actually stick in lanes on the outside, and then they have dominant interior guys between Aaron Donald and, frankly, in this matchup, even Michael Brockers can be really good. And Morgan Fox, seriously, that guy's not a bad player. So that's really, really the way you want to attack Russell Wilson. They're built perfectly for that. So there's real pass rush here. Now, they do, outside Aaron Donald, lack people with the ability to like win super quick, which, they can be a little bit of an issue, but it's really good. So then you talk about the receivers. And again, the Rams built perfectly to shut down the Seahawks, right? Because DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So I've talked about this a lot of times with the Seahawks. They both really struggle. Well, not even go quite that far. Or just kind of mediocre in the initial route tree of a play. They aren't really great separators with like their own ability in the first, whatever segment of a play. Now, after that, they get infinitely better. DK Metcalf can really make plays down the field. Tyler Lockett obviously can. And Tyler Lockett, I talk about this always, but I just bring it up. He's basically Christian Kirk if he had like a supernatural ability when a play breaks down. Christian Kirk also not very good in terms of separating initially. Now Tyler Lockett is better than that, but it's just a similar guy. Except for Tyler Lockett, again, the best receiver probably in the NFL. Once a play breaks down, maybe Devontae Adams, but that's what makes him so good. But here, right, both of them are limited. Jalen Ramsey can like meaningfully shut down DK Metcalf. He does it to DeAndre Hopkins. He'll do it to DK Metcalf. Not completely, just because DK's good enough, right? If you throw him 5 jump balls, he can catch one of them, but like meaningfully, he's going to really limit him. And it's the same with Darius Williams and Troy Hill versus Tyler Lockett. They're both in the first part of a route tree, probably better than Tyler Lockett is in their respective positions. Now that one gets a little dicier over time, right? Like Tyler Lockett's good enough to run away from both of them eventually, so what you get, right, with the overall pass game is you get pass rush built to attack Russell Wilson that will get there, especially through Aaron Donald, and receivers who aren't going to get open quick enough to fix that. Now, their tight ends do help, right? Greg Olsen, Will Disley, good enough to move the ball a little bit in the middle of the field, but it's not like the Rams in the middle of the field are awful in coverage, especially, their safety, John Johnson, Jordan Fuller. They're okay, right? So the Seahawks really lack anything that drives the ball for them down the field now. What they do have is Russell Wilson, and that's where it gets dangerous because you are still talking about Russell Wilson, right? With receivers who are good and against a team whose safeties are okay. John Johnson, pretty good, but not like. Listen, in regards to like Russell Wilson, right? When you talk about the level you need against him, it's like Ed Reed, right? To like shut him down, which they definitely are not. John Johnson, good, not there, and Jordan Fuller. There's a reason he's a 6th round pick. He's played really well this year, but he's had a ton of cushion from the defense in front of him, and he still does struggle a little bit with athleticism down the field. And when you have a safety like that against these receivers with this quarterback, that can become an issue. That being said, I have them at 16 to 24 points. Their offensive scheme is so stupid. They're really going to limit themselves consistently. But you're talking about Russell Wilson in the playoffs with these receivers, and I would be probably bet that's good for 2 long touchdowns, basically, long catches that lead to touchdowns over the course of a full game. Because once you get in the red zone, Russell Wilson really good there. But past that, I mean, they can really struggle to consistently score points and move the ball, and that is absolutely the case here. So in the end, with the picks, the Rams are 3.5-point underdogs. And the over-under set at 42, and I'm going to be really strong on the Rams. I think the Rams are going to win this game. Now, if Jared Goff doesn't play, you throw that out the window. The Seahawks are going to win just over the course of a game. They're going to be better. But if Jared Goff plays, yeah, the Rams, I definitely think are going to win this game. Now, I have that weekly, like their money line, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. The Seahawks are too stupid because the reason is this game is going to come down to the last possession, pretty much guaranteed. That's how the Seahawks work. It just is what it is. So the Rams to win, because is it possible Russell Wilson does that miracle drive at the last second? Yeah, you can't rule that out at all. But is that guaranteed? Certainly now. We've seen that in multiple games, against the Cardinals early this year, where it's just more of a coin flip if he does or doesn't. But when you get the team against that, plus 3.5, who are probably a better team anyway, if the Seahawks win, it's going to be by 3, the last second field goal or something like that. So, yeah, I feel really strong about the Rams 3 plus 3.5, and I think the under is bettable as well. Again, that's just one of those where you got to be careful of Russell Wilson scoring a long touchdown, in the last minute to put that just over. I do think it's bettable though, and the Rams win. So I'm gonna pick the Rams in this game, and that is Rams Seahawks.